Again, we're going to do another piece of assessment with you. How are you today?
I'm cold. How are you?
I'm good. Yes, you looked a little bit rugged up. Bit of
Yes.
change of weather happening.
Yes, but it is now double digits. It was single digits when I got up this morning, so we're getting
Oh,
warmer.
okay. That sounds unpleasant. Cool. All right. So I'll just run you through what we're going to do today. Make sure you understand how this piece of assessment works and what else you might need to do with it. If any stage you have any questions about what I'm telling you, please jump in and let me know, and I'll try to answer them as best I can. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to be completing our RPL assessment for BSBWRT311, which is Write Simple Work Documents. So you've applied to RPL this particular piece of assessment based on the grounds that in your current working role, you actually do a lot of the creation of simple Word documents for your role. So basically, this is what we call our RPL program, which is recognition of prior learning. So you basically need to demonstrate to me that you have those skills already and that you're able to do them. Yeah. Okay, so I'll ask you a series of questions to find out, get you to give me some evidence to show your understanding of what we're doing in creating those documents. You will be assessed on those responses that you give us. I do need to take some notes down, so if I'm sort of looking away writing, I am still listening. I just need to make sure I've got some notes written down. If you don't understand any of the questions I ask, by all means, ask me to clarify or say it again or something like that, just to make sure that you understand. Based on your previous piece of assessment, we don't need to go through any extra supports for literacy and learning needs or a translator, so we're good with that. So once again, you'll be assessed competent or not competent based on the responses that you give me today. As part of this, though, you do also need to send me some samples of written documents, the ones that we discussed today, just to show that you actually do have the skills to create them, not just talk to me about them. So at this point, at the end of this session, regardless of the answers that you give me, you'll still be sitting as not yet competent until I get those final assessment pieces. Okay. So does that make sense?
Definitely, yes.
Definitely. Yep. All right. Okay. So we'll jump in some of the questions. Some of them are fairly similar and we may drift off into tangents and sort of cover the next one. If that's the case, I'll just let you know, or maybe say, can you just add a little bit more to cover this sort of question as we go? Okay.
No worries.
All right. Awesome. First one. Tell me about the type of documents that you create in your job and what are they for and who are they for?
Okay, so I create lots of different documents in my role as a teacher. Probably one of the biggest ones that I create currently is PowerPoint. So I create lots and lots of PowerPoints. Our institution has currently implemented a theme to go with our PowerPoint. So it is a lot of, because some of our programs are for composite classes, I only run them every 2 years. So when we brought them in last year, some of them have not been translated over yet. So I'm moving them over.
Yep.
And then there's some problems, obviously, with putting it into that theme and all the rest of it. So I'm not able to do that. So at that time, so I've had to move that on and just sorry, I've lost my train of thought.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, so I use those PowerPoints. I've moved them into the themes and they're for my students mostly. However, they are also put onto SharePoint. So we use SharePoint as a general location to put all of our information. And they any teacher can access it from there. So say my line manager might access it to make sure that everything is compliant and that it is suitable. And, you know, we might even do a moderation process over that. So they are there. I also create lots of emails on a daily basis. So work emails, they can be for colleagues, they could be for parents, they could be for students. So they're for a broad range of people. I do on occasion write formal letters that go home usually to parents. So I do that as well. I am involved in the union here, so I also am involved in union meetings and sometimes take minutes for that. So lots and lots of different documents.
Okay, awesome, very good. For one of your documents, tell me how you determined your audience, the purpose and requirements for your document according to organisation policies and procedures.
All right, so I'm going to talk about my PowerPoints. I love my
Yep.
PowerPoints. So
Cool.
obviously our organization brought in the template. So that is therefore
Yep.
the way that that visual has to look.
Mm-hmm.
It is for my students. So, and obviously it's because I'm teaching the students and information goes on there as a visual for them as I'm giving my verbal lessons. It also can contain other information like videos and or examples and demonstrations and things like that as well. So it's a good place to have all my lesson bits and pieces and keeps me on track.
Yep.
I know I missed one of those. What was the other thing that you needed to know about it?
So how you determined your audience, your purpose, your requirements for your document according to policies and procedures. So I think you probably covered that looking at
Okay,
the fact that your organisation has a template, has a theme, and the idea is requirements that you use those. So I think
all
we
right,
probably covered that little bit.
great.
Okay, for one of your documents, tell me how you determine the required format, style, and structure for the document.
Okay, so I'll use a formal letter to talk about this one.
Yep.
So I use formal letters to go home often when I need to have something back from parents. So
Yep.
I work in a practical environment. I have to get permission due to the risks involved in that practical environment for students to be able to participate. So I use a formal letter to go home, and then a part of it has to come back signed. I just find it's easier and more, it's our organisational policy that we're not to send those by email. We need a physical document back. So that is part of the organisational profile on that. And so I would fill out the document, I would sign it, I would then give it to our principal, who then reads it over, make sure there's no errors or problems with it. Sometimes they do have to come back just for a little rewording or something, but once that's good, he will then sign it. I can then get them printed and sent out to students.
Yep. Okay, awesome. Again, you probably covered this one a little bit, but you said for your documents to tell me how you establish the correct method of communication. So you sort of talked about you needing the visual requirements. What else does a letter ensure that a parent has seen or done rather than an email?
Yep. So again, it's more the interaction that I want to have. So if it's
Yep.
just general information that I'm giving to everyone, like at the start of every term, I'll send an email out to parents saying, hey, this is what we're doing this term. This is what your student will need. This is our assessment. If you do have any questions, please feel free to contact me. You know, if they have any questions, they can contact me. When I send a letter, I'm usually wanting something back from them.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it's just the interaction I'm trying to have. It usually determines what style of communication I use.
Yep. Okay. Awesome. For one of your documents, tell me how you establish key points to be included in your document.
So I'll use when we go to the union, and sometimes I do the minutes there if
Mhm.
our secretary is away. We have an agenda. Okay, and
Yep.
we have a template again, and that basically forms the basis of that document. You know, so the template is there. We have an agenda which has all the items already there and who's going to present. And I can just fill in any other details, like if any other comments are brought up, if there's any actions that come from that, they can all get filled in. So it's a nice, easy template and then goes out to members so everyone's aware of what happened in that meeting.
Yep. And so do you have any input into how that template has been developed, or is that something that comes through from the union?
It's something that's come through from the union, and it's a standardized template for most meetings that have
Yep.
minutes. You know, they
Okay.
all have a very similar template.
Yep. Okay. Cool. For one of your documents, tell me how you developed the draft document, communicate key points.
I'll use my letters again. So I
Mhm.
always draft the document, but I always get it checked. I have dyslexia, so it
Mhm.
can cause some problems, obviously, sometimes with especially spelling. And mostly I'll pick them up when I'm reading it.
Yep.
Not so much when I'm typing, but when I'm reading it, I'll pick it up and that will hit it, even if spell check sometimes doesn't. For instance, form and from, spell check won't pick that up.
Yeah.
So, you know, but when I'm reading it, often it'll click, it'll go, hey, that doesn't make sense. And then I can fix it. But then it does go to the principal who also reads it. And
Mhm.
then, you know, so that's a second line of defense on that.
Yeah. So just a little bit more. So when you're writing your letter, how do you work out what information needs to go into there? So what are the key things that either a parent or somebody might need to know? What's the process of getting that ready?
Yep. So first I work out what I want from it and what I
Yeah.
need to convey. So what is it that I'm expecting to get back? And what is
Hmm.
it that they need to know? So, and then from there, like often I'll just do a couple of little dot points. So, you know, you start off with your welcome, you know, your introduction, and then you have, okay, this is the information I want to give you. And then I have, you know, okay, so this is now what I want to get back from you. You know, and
Yeah.
then there's obviously then a signing off at the end.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. So how did you ensure your draft met the purpose and the requirements for the document?
through that moderation process. So,
Yep.
taking it to the principal, this is what this is for. Can you have a look at this over for me? I think it's okay, but I'd really like a second opinion. And I love
Yep.
getting that opinion from a different set of eyes.
Yeah, definitely very worthwhile. All right. Did you have to obtain or include any additional required information in your draft document? If so, what was it and why? So through that process, have you gotten any feedback, I guess?
Usually spelling,
Yeah.
um, occasionally, even just rephrasing. Simon's
Mm,
far more experienced than I am. So obviously he's had a lot more experience at creating those documents to send home to parents. And sometimes things just don't read well or can sound
mm,
a little too stern or a little bit
yeah.
too lax when they need to be one way or the other. And again, that's just experience. I've only been a teacher for 5 years.
Yeah.
So, having that wealth of experience is really handy. And, he'll often just say, look, I want you to change this. This is why I want you to change it. This is how that's going to work. And I love that he takes that time to explain it to me. So then
Yeah.
I just go back, I'll change it, send it back, he'll tick it off and then sign it.
Okay, awesome. In your workplace, are there any documents that you must have a supervisor or a colleague, for example, proofread before you can send? So I guess we've probably covered that one. Any correspondence that goes out, is it policy that needs to be signed by admin or something like that? Is that a policy for your school?
For formal letters,
Yeah.
yes, but for
Mm.
an email, for instance, no. It
Yeah.
just needs to be documented in our database.
Yeah, awesome. What changes did you have to make to one of your documents? Discuss how you ensured these changes were correctly made, e.g. that the document was checked again before it was finalised.
So it's just that process of obviously going through my line manager. So,
Yeah.
go to him, get the feedback, come back, edit the document, and then take it back again, make sure that that's now suitable, and then it gets signed off on.
Yep. Awesome. Very good. All right. We are nearly there. Only a few to go. How do you check documents for spelling, grammar, and punctuation issues?
Yep. So obviously there's the inbuilt spell check and
Mhm.
grammatical check that's in most Microsoft word processing units and emails as well. Sometimes if I'm a bit unsure of it, I'll even use Chat GPT.
Yep.
It's a great tool for sometimes saying, oh, this is a bit wishy-washy. Can you, make
Mm.
this more direct, or can you just condense this for me?
Yep.
Especially if I'm having to write about something that's upset me or I'm having emotions about it,
Mhm.
getting that AI to go over it, it just takes the emotion out of it, which is really, really great. So those would be mostly the technological ones that I would use.
Yeah, good. So you mentioned before, do you sometimes read it back to yourself? Is that how you pick up some of your mistakes? Yep.
Definitely. I find, and I tell my students to do it too, because if something doesn't sound right when you say it out loud, it isn't
Mm.
right. So then
Yeah.
you fix it. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. What is your process for ensuring your document is readable and that the sentences, paragraphs, sequences, and structure of the document are correct?
Yep.
So
So
again,
reading it back to
probably,
yourself.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely reading it back to yourself. If that is the big, ever since I started in school, my English teacher in school told me that. And she said,
Mm.
with your dyslexia, this is so important for you,
Yeah.
and I think it is for everyone, but for me especially, because sometimes the mistakes I make, spell checkers and that, they don't pick it up. But when
Mm.
you read it out loud, it does. And luckily for me, my dyslexia doesn't really affect my reading as such. It's more my
Yeah.
spelling and my writing that's
Okay.
atrocious.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that really fixes it for me.
And I guess you talked a lot about templates as well. That's helping you make sure the structure of everything is what needs to happen. Yeah.
Yep. And for paragraphing structure, as I said, Chat GPT is just a godsend.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. What are two examples of your organization's policies and procedures for written documents?
Yep.
So things you must
So
do, I guess.
Yep, so we've got quite a few of them. So, for instance, I mentioned all of our curriculum information is stored on SharePoint. So
Yeah.
that's one of our policies, is that any documentation, any class information such as PowerPoints or lesson plans or unit plans, they're all stored in that centralized location. So that is a policy for that. And then the structure of those is also a policy. So there are templates for unit plans. There are templates for, marking our rubrics. There's templates for the PowerPoints. That's
Yeah.
all the structure. And then, of course, there's the structures for the letters home. You must have the school letterhead. You must have the two signatures.
Yeah.
It's got to be on that specific format.
Mhm. Yep. Awesome. When would you use general emails in a work setting to communicate something and why?
So if it's just a general email, just giving information, I said that start of term email, perfect example. It goes out to every parent or guardian in that class. And it's just general information about what we'll be doing, what their student needs, you know, and if they do have any questions or queries, please feel free to reach out at any time. You know, it's a general email, same email goes to everyone, and it's, you know, much more efficient than sending out letters and wasting a lot of paper for that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Efficiency is probably the key, and everyone gets the same message at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. When would you use procedures to communicate something and why?
So procedures for me is usually keeping me safe.
Yeah.
You know, so if something serious has happened, I will often go to Simon and say, Simon, this has happened. I need to communicate with a parent. What procedures are in place for this? You know, and often it'll be, okay, if it's super serious, letter home, and he will sign off on it too. If it's just communication, you know, he might say, look, draft an email, send it to me, I'll check it, and then send it to a parent. And that just keeps me safe because, you know, it takes out that guesswork of, oh, should I have said that? Should I have waited a day and taken the emotion out? You know, have I properly put forward my point of view without, you know, professionally, without having that emotion? Because at the end of the day, we're all human and we do have feelings, thoughts, and emotions. But we do need to be professional. And I love that I have that relationship with my admin team that I can do that.
Excellent. All right. Well, that's all of the questions for today that I've got. So that will pretty much wrap this up. Just remember, I do need you to send me those some sample documents, so I can just check off that you can actually do them as well as talk about them. And then once we've got that, I'll finish the assessment. I'll try to get some feedback back to you within probably 7 days, and then we can go from there if you need to make any resubmissions or whether you're competent or not. Okay.
All right. No worries at all.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks. Bye.
See you later. Bye.